Hey guys, it's WaifuGate here today. So, we're going to be doing something a bit different. Normally, I put this video out on Wednesday. We're putting it out today instead, though. This is Underrated Card of the Week. This will be episode 12, I believe. Yeah, episode 12. So what we do in this series is we kind of pick a card out in the meta that stands out to us because it hasn't been ran in a long time. I feel like it's underrated, like it should be ran more, and I don't understand why it's not. That type of deal. And we just kind of break down the card and give reasons for that. So that pretty much covers the basics of the series. I do this every Wednesday, and yeah. So we're doing it a little bit early this week. And there's also an MTGA Code giveaway in the video somewhere. So that'll just be highlighted in like red text somewhere. It'll be floating up on the screen for a couple seconds. You just jam that into your MTGA store and it'll spit out a card. Now this card is not always useful. It can be an uncommon, for example. It can be a rare or a mythic. But I mean, like it's a code still. So usually what I do is I also ask if you guys win the code, you can jam it in the comments below, and that helps people know that the code's already been consumed because it's first come first serve, one-time use. And then for 2, I keep a leaderboard on the stream, like, you know, best card, worst card pulled, just so we have a little bit of extra fun with that. Hopefully that helps you guys. And hopefully this video helps you in regards to maybe finding a card that you might be able to brew around or include in your deck or your sideboard for tech. So let's dig into it. All right, so for today's underrated card of the week, or this week's underrated card of the week, more like it, we've got Discovery Dispersal. So this card used to be kind of popular, but it's sort of fallen out of the meta for the most part. I think that's mainly because Omen of the Sea sort of outshines it. Now, why? Well, it's because that Omen of the Sea does the first effect of this, which is basically scry for 2, surveil for 2. It's very close. And then draw a card. So the flip side of this, get it? Because there's another side of the card. Literal different effect is Dispersal gives it a little more depth. So each opponent returns a non-land permanent they control with the highest CMC, converted mana cost, among permanents they control to its owner's hand, then discards a card. So the drawbacks are this isn't instant speed for Discovery. And it's going to be early game draw, which is what you want. But tapping out can sometimes allow your opponent to, maybe resolve a Teferi 3-head, like Teferi Time Raveler, another Planeswalker you might not like Narset, which shuts this card off, etc. There's lots of reasons why you would rather run Omen of the Sea. The deck that I found this clicking for me in a lot of other different ways, compared to Omen of the Sea, were decks that I wanted my graveyard to be a little thicker. In Historic, sometimes that measures up to wanting to have Search for Azcanta online a little earlier, and this can feed Azcanta by 2. Whereas Omen of the Sea can feed it by 1 if you crack and scry it later on, or have some type of sack effect, etc. Like you eventually get that card in the graveyard, but this can fuel it by like 3 because you pitch 2, then you have Discovery itself. So that moves you 3 towards Azcanta, which is pretty nice. The other big difference compared to Omen of the Sea is that this is a sorcery, which can tie into things like Kefnet, which is a deck that I've been messing around with since Adam and Ant stopped by my stream and was like, hey, and he redeemed the deck check, which is like channel points. 2,500, and I took a look at the list and I really wanted to try it out. It looked interesting and refreshing since I hadn't played it in such a long time. And in that type of a deck, you really want a lot of versatile instant and sorcery cards. So like, if I reveal this, then I can surveil for 2, then draw a card with 1 blue mana or 1 black mana, which is pretty versatile after I like opt on their turn, etc. And like you can cast this on their turn with Kefnit's effect. And this is sort of like a two-front war where we're running two sort of, you know, underrated cards or maybe mediocre cards, a lot of people consider them, to make a decent synergy. And normally I try to fight that, but in this type of a deck, when you're revolving a card around something that's very, very strong, it makes sense to me to have a card that's pretty versatile like this, because if you reveal this card off Kefnet, you can have the extra copy cast for 3, which means that you can bounce your opponent's highest permanent once, make them discard it, and then actually use your copy of the card on their turn during the upkeep even, and make them discard, you know, their last card in their hand or whatever else. If they don't have permanents, you can just actually make this like a duress almost during the upkeep. So I really like that effect. But if you are just comparing the raw power of Discovery versus Omen of the Sea, since that is the closest card to it for the most part, unless you really value the Dispersal, Omen might be better for you. But having the foresight while you're deck constructing and trying to understand that there are other options and they might be better in some aspects is very important too, because a lot of the times I fall prey to that where I'm just like, oh yeah, this is the most efficient card ever, I'm going to jam 4 into my deck as I'm creating the deck. And there's no thought process behind that. And I think that's a problem. I think that I should always be thinking about stuff. Even if a lot of things seem automatic because they are good, doesn't mean that they're the best. Because synergistically, this makes a lot more sense to me with Kefnet. And if this makes sense with Kefnet, maybe there's another card that it also makes sense with compared to Omen. Yeah. And I think that's what makes good deck builders instead of great ones, when you don't take that extra step. And I don't even consider myself a like good deck builder yet. I'm still working on it, but I know that it's part of the equation, you know? Is just keeping your eyes open for good cards. So I would say, like, just think about it when you're doing deck building in general. If there's another card that might work for you, why it's good, kind of make a pros and cons list between the two, and then, you know, maybe not an actual Venn diagram and all of that good stuff, but just actually trying to think about it. Like, hey, if I run this over Omen, how often is this Dispersal gonna save me? Will it give me an answer to something like, you know, Eugene maybe, right? Because Eugene can sometimes be, and what I mean by Eugene, it's just kind of a funny way to say Ugin, the spirit dragon. So when we're talking about Ugin, you know, you need a card that can deal with that, like Murderous Rider, Elspeth Conquers Death, etc. Something that's kind of cheap that can kind of just answer him. This isn't exactly cheap, but for 5 mana you can bounce it back to their hand, discard it, and then maybe Thought Erasure them or something, right? Like maybe there's something that, or like Agonizing Remorse something, you know, to get it out of their hand. And that bounce effect can pressure their hand as well, because if they're sitting on an extra card, such as a land or, you know, maybe another creature that they don't want to quite deploy yet because they're saving it for an effect, being able to make them discard that extra card, and then making them discard it again. Like 2 Dispersals can do it. It's 10 mana, but it can be done, unless you're discounting it with Kefnet. But you see where, like, if I bounce this, make them discard their extra card, they can no longer bluff either. You're getting information, you're buying that with the 5 mana. You're buying that because you made a choice to include Discovery into your deck and Dispersal, 2 cards instead of 1 with Omen of the Sea. Right? And that could be better. I think it's way better in the Kefnet deck, but I mean, that's a really specific example, and I don't want to keep, you know, driving that into the wall. The nail's already in, you know. But anyway, if you guys, you know. So hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 12 of Underrated Card of the Week. Usually try to put this out at least once a week on Wednesdays. And hopefully it'll kind of open up your eyes to different options. for deck building, for tech, for sideboard stuff. In this case, you know, maybe instead of Omen of the Sea, you get a little bit of a different card to run if it fits the bill for you. And if you guys have any suggestions on next week's underrated card of the week, you can feel free to drop those down below in the comments, or stop by my stream. Usually stream from 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time. And there'll be an end panel if you want to click subscribe. It really helps the channel. And then there's also a next video if you want to enjoy some more content. So with that being said, appreciate you guys, and I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day.